What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Walkoff. I'm Vince McCone, and of course, we're joined by Justin Randell, Anthony Walsh below me, or on my screen. I have it in like a tower, but I bet everyone will be looking at it from side to side. So, anyways, I have Justin Randell. I'm joined with Anthony Walsh. How are we doing, guys?
Doing pretty good.
Doing well.
We got, another great week of baseball, a little bit less than a week of baseball, since our last episode, but we still got some big moves. We got some big news and still nothing on Otani. So if you came here looking for Otani news, nothing. A little bit, but mostly nothing. So I just say we get started off. I would like to start off actually a little outside of the baseball world and more in the Hall of Fame world. Baseball, the Old Timers Club has inducted their first member so far, their only member this for this Hall of Fame class, and that's Jim Leyland. He managed for 13 seasons, and he's been to the World Series 3 times. He managed the Padres, the Rockies, and the Pirates. I'm missing one team. And the Marlins. Not the Rockies, the Marlins. So I'm still missing one team, but
it was the Pirates, Marlins, Rockies, and Tigers.
Thank you. So he did manage the Rockies.
For 1 year in 99. Yep.
I'm just the best. There we go. But 97, with the Florida Marlins, he won the World Series over there. When they beat the Cleveland Indians at the time. And this team, I mean, if you're looking at the baseball reference page of this team, not a lot of big names on here except for Gary Sheffield. And he's a class act. He managed the Tigers when they went to the World Series. They lost to the Giants, but he has a lot of Hall of Famers under his belt, and I think this is well deserved. I'm always a little concerned about who the Old Timers Committee brings in, but if they're bringing in managers, I usually always approve.
Yeah, I'm for Jim Leyland going in. He's definitely not a first ballot type guy, which obviously he wasn't. But he's definitely a baseball legend in terms of, he was in the game from he was manager from 86 to 2013. So he was there for a really long time. Had success obviously with that Marlin team, but he also had a lot of success outside of that. 2012 went to the World Series, lost, but he was in 2006, same thing. He not all of his teams won everything, but still he was a baseball lifer. He was there forever. Big personality. Obviously, I always see the image of him smoking in the dugout. He's one of the last guys to be doing that. But yeah, he's just like a legendary figure. You think about. I know if I think of the Tigers, Jim Leyland's certainly one of the first names I think of, and definitely in terms of Marlins managers, I think of Jim Leyland because he's really the only name that really pops out at me. But yeah, good for him. I think he deserves it, and I'm glad he gets to enjoy it with his family and everything. And it should be a fun day when he gets in.
Yeah, and he won Manager of the Year 1986, 1987, 1988, 90, 91, 92, 90. Or I'm sorry. He came in the top 6 in manager or top 5 in manager voting. And I just lost the number. A bunch of times, but he won Manager of the Year in 90, 92, and 2006. And he only went to the World Series in 2006 of those years. So, again, very rewarding for him. Congratulations. But Justin, I cut you off.
No, you're good. No, I agree with Leyland getting into the Hall of Fame as well. And, I'm just pulling up these notes here really quickly, but I see that his overall record was not so great being a manager, but the record itself doesn't show for what Leyland did for every team that he was a part of. Obviously we mentioned he won the World Series 1 year, but his overall record was 1,769 and 1,728. That's only good for a .506 win percentage. But again, as I mentioned, every team that he would join as the years went on, going from the Pirates to the Marlins, he would take the losing culture of like the Marlins and then turn them into a better team. So he would never join a team and, decrease their value. He would come in and make the team better. He was a all around great manager, for the game of baseball. And just as the years went on and the teams that he kept moving, onto, he never had a down season. He would always find a way to make the team better. And I think that played a big role as to why the Baseball Hall of Fame elected to vote him in.
I think, yeah, especially because the Marlins were an expansion team. They only came into existence in '93. Obviously, by '97, they did have some stars in there and everything, but still, to have an expansion team win after just a few years, it happens very rarely. And so, I think Jim Leyland was the guy for that job. And yeah, I think the overall record is kind of, as you alluded to, kind of misconstrued because he was there for so long. It's very difficult when you're a manager for that long to have a really good record. The only ones that do are like the legendary ones, and I'm not saying Leyland is that, but I still think he is very good. I put him in that very good category. And with the Hall of Fame letting very good, players and managers in now, you can't leave Leyland out. He's definitely in that very good category.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, you think of some teams that have, no offense to these teams, but have a losing culture, especially in today's age in the 21st century, like the Tigers. He won. He had 85 or more win seasons with them 6 out of the 8 years that he was there. And the only years that he didn't, once they finished 500, and the other year they finished 74 and 88. The next year they come back, they won 86 games. So, I mean, talks about how good he can be with pieces. I mean, listen, I feel like if some people who aren't as big of baseball fans see this, they might say, well, he was given the pieces to work with them. I don't think that's true. I mean, you can see it all around. I don't want to insult any Mets fans out there, but you see Buck Showalter had the pieces this year. It didn't work out for him. Not saying that Buck Showalter is not a great manager. Not saying that it was Buck Showalter's fault, but even in Philadelphia, Gabe Kapler had all these pieces to go to the playoffs, and he couldn't even finish over 500. So the ability to have the right pieces, but to also use them the right way is something that you don't see by every manager anywhere. But yeah. To move on now, the Atlanta Braves. I would like to get straight into baseball now. The baseball world. This trade, I would not be surprised at all if this trade goes down as one of the worst moves by the Mariners ever. I would not be surprised whatsoever. The Atlanta Braves traded for Jared Kelenic, who was a top prospect and was in the Edwin Diaz trade. Marco Gonzalez, who had 1 or 2 good seasons with the Mariners. He's been a little shaky as of late. This season was not good for him. He posted a 5.22 ERA, but you go back 3 years ago, 3.96 the year before that, 3.10 the year before that, 3.99. And then Evan White, who had actually a really good year with the Dodgers. The Mariners are getting Jackson Kowar and Cole Phillips. I've heard Kowar's name a lot, and I know he's a good prospect, but I can't get behind this deal. It's just this deal, as much as it was, cost saving for the Mariners, this is just showing how dynasty this Braves team is. I mean, if Jared Kelenic or Marco Gonzalez can really be that next guy, they can really turn it on in Atlanta, which we've seen so many people do. I mean, you just look at this last year. Orlando Arcia, who was, a solid infielder, was an all-star the first year or the second year he joins the Braves. Ozzie Albies, who's a name that I think everyone can agree on. They did not know before he, was on the Braves. He's always been a Brave, but before he really turned it on with Acuna there. Just the names and the pieces that this team has, the Braves are unstoppable, and they are the 90s Yankees right now.
Well, they're the 90s Yankees if they could go and win more. They gotta prove it in the playoffs. But they have the potential to be that. Now, I mean, I was obviously very high on the Braves this past season, but I did say I have the caveat of if they fail again, I gotta call them out on it for being it's habitual now. And it is habitual now. But anyway, just on this move specifically, it's a good move for sure. And I think the main reason, and pretty much the only reason why the Mariners did it, is because it's a cost-dumping move. Gonzalez is owed 12.25 million this next year, and White's owed 15 million over the next 2 seasons. So while those two contracts don't sound like a ton, the Mariners aren't a team that pays a lot of money for guys. And I think that they want this offseason to be as clean as they can. And they want to, bring in as many free agents as they can. In order for that to happen, they need to keep the costs under a certain amount. They're just one of those teams as they're not going to go anywhere near the Steve Cohen level, the Dodgers level. They're a small market team. They're not that level. But as for the trade itself, I mean, how could you not look at that, even if you're not a Mets fan, and say, this guy's going to come there and torment the Mets for the next 10, 15 years? Because he's 24 years old. People forget that. The Diaz trade happened a solid 5 years ago now. But he was traded very young when that happened. He was about 19 years old. Obviously, he's been a disappointment so far. You could have your gripes with the way the Mariners handled things. He was brought up far too early, in my opinion. And he hasn't been all that terrible in the past couple of years. I mean, he's had his years where they weren't that good, but I think he was put in a really bad spot. And he's got a lot of time left to figure it out. He's just entering his prime now. He's going to get some playing time in Atlanta. And what better place to be if it's him? I mean, he could get revenge against a team that traded him. He's going into a powerhouse team. I mean, could it end up being nothing and Kelenic's just a failed prospect? Yeah. But also, you see guys have resurgences like this all the time. It's not that crazy. It's not like he's 28, 29. He's got time to figure it out. So as a Mets fan, it scares me. Judging by your reaction, Justin, I could see it probably scares you too. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I think it's a really good move for the Braves. I'd be happy if I was a Braves fan.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I was more surprised with the fact that Kelenic was traded to begin with at all, because I thought like that was gonna be like one of those big pieces that the Mariners were gonna build off of for years to come. Pairing him, of course, with Julio Rodriguez and just the team in general. But the fact that he was sent to the Braves, I mean, that just like that put me into shock like right away, because we all know the experiences where the Mets, give up players and this and that. And then now knowing that a former Met is joining your biggest division rival, and also just knowing the history of the Braves getting players and turning them into, all-star caliber guys. And, as far as the Braves not giving up too much to get a 24-year-old in Jared Kelenic, I see this as a great move for them. Especially, now that Eddie Rosario in left field is getting older, and I'm not sure if he's a free agent right now or whatever, but come opening day, there's a solid chance that Jared Kelenic could be that starting left fielder for the Braves. And just in general, like I think that Kelenic would thrive with that team, because he's going to come up to bat with guys on base in big scoring opportunities, and those are going to be the moments where Kelenic is going to really develop into that good player that he was, promoted to be when he was first drafted by the Mets. And so I think we're going to see that on full display this upcoming season with him being with the Braves.
I think it's going to be good for him to be in a place where he really wants to be too. I think he has gripes over how he was handled. Not that I put a ton of stock in the social media stuff, but he did have a thank you post on Instagram, and he never mentioned the Mariners name once. So a typical thank you post is thank you to the organization. I appreciate you for believing in me. Never mentioned that once. And I think that was a calculated move. He was not happy there. That's probably part of the reason why he was gone. But yeah, if there's anywhere he's going to succeed, it's going to be with the Braves. I think if he doesn't succeed with the Braves, he's probably going to fall off and be gone eventually. But he's going to have a real shot. That's for sure. I don't know if he's going to be starting, but he's going to get playing time. And he's going to have a chance to really prove everybody wrong and prove that he was that caliber prospect that everybody thought he was.
I think the best part about this is he doesn't have to be a starting guy to begin it, but he can be a starting guy and, next year or the year after, and still have, 5, 4 or 5, 6 years of really good prime. He had a big jump this year. Kind of looked like what people thought that he was going to be. Hit 253 with 11 home runs in 105 games. He got injured, I believe, or he got sent down to the minors. I forget which one, but I do remember that happened. Again, I think this is a move for the Mariners. This is a move for the Mariners that's not going to help them. It's not going to hurt them as much, but I feel like they're going to kind of like it's not shooting yourself in the foot because you're right. I mean, it gives you some contract options. I would hope that they're going full throttle right now into Shohei Ohtani. I think this is the team that he deserves to be on, that Shohei should be on if he wants to be in a winning culture. The Mariners with a developing Julio Rodriguez and, a lot of other pieces, if they can keep Logan Gilbert and, potentially pick up one more starter, this team could be really good for a long time. Not as long as the Braves, but a long time. But transitioning from the trade aspects to some Ohtani news. So John Heyman reports that Ohtani has received multiple offers north of 500 million. The Dodgers, Cubs, Blue Jays, Giants, and the Angels are believed to be finalists, but I doubt the Angels are in there. Again, I would like to see the Mariners on this list, but I guess not. In my head, I saw it's the winter meetings now. Dave Roberts got on MLB Network and said we talked to Ohtani, which is something that we talked about on the show before, that Ohtani doesn't want any of his conversations to be leaked. I'll be honest. I think Ohtani needs to take that. I don't know how seriously he's taking it himself, but I would hope that he's taking it not so seriously. Because Blue Jays fans want to know if they're getting him. Giants fans want to know if they're getting him. In my head, I don't think the Cubs are in this whatsoever. I still don't think they're in this. If they get him, I guess, but I don't think he's a good fit there. Is there any teams on this list or off this list that you think are finalists here? Like top 3 finalists or the landing spot?
I think it really comes down to the Dodgers. I don't see any way that it can't be them. I think that they're the only team that is willing to really spend that type of money, and they're really the only team that he wants to go to because it fits what he wants. I'm going to choose to believe that he wants to kind of be on the West Coast. I don't think he's as close-minded as some reports are saying, that he wouldn't, consider being on the East Coast, but I think he enjoys the West Coast kind of being a lesser media frenzy there. Less attention on him. Oh, obviously he's gonna always have a ton of attention, but it's way different than New York or Philadelphia, anything like that. But yeah, I don't see him holding that Roberts because Dave Roberts really didn't say anything crazy. He said that he met with them for a few hours. He said it went well, but it's up to Ohtani. And I'm sure before Dave Roberts did that, he said, do you mind if I just mentioned this meeting really went well and that we met for a couple of hours? I don't think he just went out of nowhere and said that. That doesn't seem very like something Dave Roberts would do. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be shocked if he went anywhere else besides the Dodgers. I'd be really particularly shocked if he went back to the Angels. I think that'd be a major mistake for his career. But yeah, I think it's down to the Dodgers, maybe the Giants. But again, I don't see the Giants putting that type of money down.
Yeah, I agree with you in that aspect as well. I remember a couple of shows ago, I did mention that I felt that the Dodgers was the best fit for him. I still feel that way, but as the rumors and stuff have been piling on for Ohtani, I thought another team is in on him big time that could really use Ohtani in their lineup, and that's the Boston Red Sox, in my opinion. I think that is one interesting team that he could possibly end up with. And of course, they already have a Japanese player in Masataka Yoshida. So something like that could lure Ohtani, to the Red Sox and keep him in the AL. But I still agree with you, Anthony, in the aspect where he does want to stay on that West Coast, dealing with the warm weather and just in general, just playing and thriving in a big market, city like LA. But yeah, I found it really interesting with the Red Sox because, of course, they have young pitching and Brian Bello as one of your main guys as well. You're still hoping to see Trevor Story have a bounce back season, dealing with all those injuries, and the Red Sox are waiting for him to thrive with that team as well. Of course, what you're going to get with Alex Verdugo with his bat and his fielding as well. But I just think it's an interesting team. Like the Red Sox are up and coming. They're in a little bit of a transition, of course. But I think Otani on this team would thrive both pitching wise and bat wise, of course. I mean, I just think that's something that the Red Sox really need. And of course, although right field in Fenway Park is a little bit deeper for Otani as well, but in general, he's never gonna have a problem hitting home runs out of Fenway Park, and I think that would be a great ballpark for him to thrive in, and just for the team in general. So, but in the end of the day, I still feel that the Dodgers are the best destination for him.
I'll say
I'll-
this: if oh, sorry, Vincent.
Oh, no.
If the Red Sox do get him, the Yankees should be the media should be going after the Yankees very hard, because put it in a perspective of if the Braves got him, the media would be killing the Mets. So if the Yankees let him go to their biggest rival, a rival who has spent money but never really spent that I mean, north of $500 million, you're talking serious money. So if they let that happen to a team that's solid team but going in rebuild mode, man, you gotta that is just a colossal failure by Brian Cashman and George Steinbrenner. I don't see that happening. I'd be very, very surprised. But then again, he's tried to keep this process very quiet, so we don't know everything that's happening. But if it does happen, you gotta knock the Yankees, because that's unacceptable.
I think one thing to also remember is Shohei does live in Japan, so the West Coast is closer to Japan. And it's also important to note that you could be the worst team or you could be the best team in the league, and Shohei Ohtani is going to benefit your lineup no matter where you put him. I think it's also important to know that, nothing's really confirmed yet. Nothing is there yet. I guarantee by our next show, we will still be talking about Shohei Ohtani and how he's still on the market. There will be reports. I cannot tell you if they will be true or not. Same thing with Yamamoto, and the same thing with a bunch of these free agents. I mean, right now, this free agency, it's just feeling a lot like it was 2-3 years ago when Michael Conforto was on the free agency, and it's just very slow. It's slow. Nothing really big has happened yet in the free agent market except for Aaron Nola, which we all thought was going to get the ball rolling, but it just seems to have kept it at a standstill. I think a good thing is that we are at the winter meetings. Last winter meetings, we saw a lot of stuff happen. Xander Bogaerts got signed. Trey Turner got signed. So there's a lot of things that could happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to say that we are still just at a standstill here. Yamamoto is the same. I know there's a report from the Giants. They might have an edge in the bidding on Yamamoto, and Aaron Boone said that he has met with Yamamoto and he plans on meeting with him again, kind of like smiled and giggled at it. So I cannot tell you what's next for any of these teams. But we'll keep you as updated as we can. We have some free agency news, which I know that we're all excited to talk about. But for the Otani, Yamamoto, and even Jung Ho Lee, for those sweepstakes, no idea what's happening whatsoever. We'll have to see. But in some free agency news, Wade Miley has been re-signed with a 1-year contract to the Milwaukee Brewers. I think this is kind of a sign that they are going to blow it up, I would imagine. And Jose Iglesias, minor league deal to the Mets. He's been a great glove piece, and he's even had a pretty good bat at times. And Kirby Yates is going to the Rangers on a 1-year deal. I think this is kind of the replacement to Will Smith, although Kirby Yates had a great year last year, so anything's possible. Do you guys see any of these deals being really big? I would be shocked if you say Jose Iglesias and actually mean it.
I wouldn't say any of them would be really big. I think Kirby Yates is a nice pitcher. Yeah, I think I look at the Wade Miley and Kirby Yates situation as kind of the same. Both guys that are older, still pitching solid. Might be towards the end of their rope, but maybe you could get another year or two out of them. The Iglesias thing, I mean, as long as it's just a backup role, fine. If he's playing like every day, then I have a real big problem with that because he can't hit. But yeah, I don't really look at. I think these are type of moves that go on when teams are just looking for depth. I don't want to call Miley and Yates depth because they're not. They're pitchers, but they're not going to be. None of those guys are going to be major parts of their team.
Yeah, I agree with you in that aspect as well. As far as Kirby Yates going to the Rangers, I agree that it could be a significant move, especially, with the Rangers needing a little bit of bullpen help, of course. They have Jose Leclerc in there, but adding a guy like Kirby Yates would take the pressure off of Leclerc to close games and whatnot. You can rotate, each guy if someone's been pitching a little bit too much. But as far as the Mets deal with Iglesias, normally it would be the type of deal that's not significant, but dealing with the Mets and how like they don't have so many bench bats to work with. Although it's a minor league deal, this is a contract that Jose Iglesias is trying to take it as, hey, I'm trying to make this team. Of course, I know that the Mets need some bench bats help, but I believe Iglesias will probably be on the roster come opening day. But as far as if he ever went to any other team, he would be fighting for a roster spot because other teams do have their bench bats ready to go. And for the Mets, they're searching for those guys, and Jose Iglesias has a good chance of being one of those guys.
Yeah, I agree. We'll have to see how the moves work out, but my favorite's definitely Kirby Yates because we saw Chapman blow some games last year, and Leclerc is a great pitcher, but he's more of a setup guy. Kirby Yates closes the door, and he closes it really well. At least on the Braves last year, he posted a 3.28 ERA, and he only had 5 saves, but in years past, especially years past with the San Diego Padres, he had 41 saves. I think he can really be a great piece for this team. He's played in Atlanta the past 2 years, and last year he had a little over 60 innings pitched. I mean, he's my guy to look out for. I love the Christian Yelich, Cody Bellinger, and Kirby Yates comeback seasons. Now we have some final news for you guys. It's draft season. As just like the NBA, just like every other sport, the draft lottery is here, and it was a shocker for sure. I like how it shows that just because you're tanking doesn't mean that you're going to get that first round draft pick. And the Oakland A's right now are feeling it really rough. 3 teams had over an 18% chance to get it. Those teams were the Rockies, the Royals, and the A's. I believe that was them. To say the least, 2 teams that did not have a very big percentage in getting the first pick. Oh, okay. Breaking news. Breaking news here on the walk-off.
Oh boy.
Eric Feedy, he pitched in hold up. Let me get up.
Pitched in Washington.
He pitched in Washington, and he last pitched in 2022, went over to the Japanese league last year, just got signed to a 2-year contract, $15 million with the White Sox.
Okay, good. I don't want him.
Are you sure? Are you sure you said breaking news there?
Breaking. Yeah, I just got the report.
No, it was a joke.
Well, that's true. White Sox.
Like no offense to Eric Feedy, but
I'd like to see him come back from him. He was once a top
agree.
prospect, but
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you hope to see a nice comeback for him, but I thought this was something like out of the water breaking news, but
so sorry. I'm sorry to break everyone's heart here. He has looking at his stats now, I can see why we're not talking about him that much. He's never had under a 4.25 ERA. And his last 2 seasons in the majors, he had way north of a 5 ERA. So interesting for him. Let's see. Deeper into this statistics really quickly. Let's see.
I mean, I'll say this: he had a very good season, uh, last season, but that wasn't in Major League Baseball, so I don't know how 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 much stock you could put into that. Was it in the KBO? Who was he with?
I believe so, but I'm not
I
entirely.
think it was the KBO. But yeah, it was the KBO.
I mean,
But
nonetheless, we hope for a good comeback.
but I mean, he's not that old, 30 years old and everything. But I think the money he's getting shows you how competitive this pitching market is. If Eric Fetty's getting this kind of money, then you can only imagine what Jordan Montgomery's going to get. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny. Like, well, I know last night they were saying it's between the White Sox and the Mets, and everybody was putting like LeBron James the decision. Like, it was just funny, but I don't see him being anything more than at best a low 4 ERA guy, maybe a high 3 ERA guy at best again. Because if you look at those numbers, he hasn't been like that in a while.
Definitely not pretty whatsoever. Yeah, no. This is definitely not. Maybe a little comeback. We'll see. We'll see, but I doubt anything. Um, sorry for that breaking news. The breaking news. But back to some draft news. Two teams that were not at all in the uh idea for first overall pick in the 2024 draft were the Cleveland Guardians and the Cincinnati Reds. Both teams were fighting. Guardians a little bit less, Reds a little bit more. Fighting for a playoff spot. Guardians were in it last year. Reds haven't been in it for a while. And the Guardians are taking the first overall pick. The Reds are second. And then it goes Rockies, A's, White Sox, Royals for top 6. I mean, this could be for two teams that have very young cores. This could set them up perfectly.
I know you said you might like this. I do not like the lottery thing. I'm sorry. I think a team with 76 wins, there's no universe where they should be the first pick in the draft. I understand not wanting teams to tank. That's all fine and good, but then enforce that. I don't think you need to change, reinvent the wheel to prevent that. I just think whatever. But my point is that the NFL does it the way that the MLB did it up until last year. Nobody has any issues with it. And the NFL has a lot less games. It's a lot easier to tank than it would be for a baseball team. I mean, a baseball team, for them to tank, I'm sure it's happened, but you have to lose a lot of games, and it would be pretty obvious if you just weren't trying at all. But yeah, it is what it is, and it's very good for the Guardians. They're a team that's already pretty young, but is looking obviously to sustain, like every other team is looking to sustain for the future. And so it'll be interesting. The Athletics really got screwed. I mean, as bad of a season they had, they're barely in the top 5. I don't know. I feel terrible for those Athletics fans. They feel like the Jets of Major League Baseball. But but yeah, I'm not a fan of the changed drafts. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one as well. Just yeah, as you mentioned, nothing seems to go right for the A's. Obviously, they're moving now to Vegas, but knowing that they had one of those high chances to win the number 1 pick and then falling to 4, that's just a huge blow to the team. But nonetheless, I mean, having a top 5 pick in general, is a good opportunity as well to pick a franchise player. There's always going to be good players out there to draft, but as far as the A's are concerned, I agree. It's very disappointing that they didn't get the number 1 pick. But as far as the Guardians, as you mentioned, Vin, of course, they made the playoffs the previous season. You know that they're up and coming as well, having a lot of younger players, obviously, and Tristan McKenzie as being one of your top starters in that rotation. And, adding another young player, which is yet to be determined, is only going to make the Guardians better. We don't know who exactly the consensus number 1 pick in the draft will be now that the Guardians took over the number 1 pick. But nonetheless, I mean, there's so much great talent coming in for this 24 draft class, and it's going to be an exciting day for baseball fans to watch the draft and have their opinions on who takes who and what the future holds for those teams.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Anthony. I think the draft lottery is so stupid. But I also think another thing that I think is stupid, is that the World Series champion is last in the draft. Like the Braves. The Braves, and the other teams behind them are like the Diamondbacks are an up and coming team, and I don't think they thought that they would be in the playoffs, let alone the World Series last year, and they're 29th in the draft. And even the Phillies, not to be a little biased or anything, but they won a little over they almost won 90 games but didn't win 90 games. Or no, they won exactly 90 games this year. I apologize. But they're behind three teams, or they're in front of three teams that won 100 games. They're behind the Orioles, the Dodgers, and the Braves, which I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me, but that's just me. I've just never been a fan of the draft thing, but baseball is a different kind. There's tons of busts in the first round, and it takes so much potential to really do good in the minors and then succeed the exact same in the majors. Because it's not like the NBA where you're drafted and you're on the starting lineup. It's a slow process. But yeah, I think that's the majority of it.
It's one of these guys could end up like Jackson Churio and get a $80-something million deal at 19. You never know.
$2 million.
Today's world.
If he's getting that, imagine what Jackson Holiday's going to get.
I saw a question on Instagram, which Anthony, you were talking about earlier. I don't know how much I can trust social media with all these reports, but this one was just posing a question. Do you think that Jackson Holiday will be the Orioles' starting shortstop this year on opening day?
Oh, boy, I'm going to let you take this one first, Justin.
Oh, it's up for debate. I mean, obviously the numbers speak for themselves. He was just raking all through the minor leagues. I mean, you saw him move up in the system pretty quickly. I think he was in the AA, played like, I think maybe like 10 to 15 games around there, if I'm not mistaken. And then he got promoted to AAA right away. So, that the numbers speak for themselves, and how he's just been doing great in the minors. And it's only a matter of time until he becomes on the actual roster of the Baltimore Orioles. But there's a strong possibility. Obviously, he's going to be in spring training. He's going to get a lot of opportunities of playing games, showcase what he has. And I think there is a strong chance he could be the opening day shortstop for the Orioles. And, you can move Gunnar Henderson over to third base or second base, wherever they decide to play him. But, he's an up and coming star. And I think there's a strong chance. There's no other way of putting it.
I'll say this. I mean, it would obviously bolster their infield. Not that their infield's bad or anything, but they do have some areas where they could improve third and second. But if I'm the Orioles, I want to see him in AAA a little bit more. He did have a little bit of time in AAA, 18 games. He's been very quick at each level. You go single A, he never played more than like he played 57 in high A, but he never played more than like 60 games in like a single level, which is insane. And obviously he's so young. I think he's just turned 20. But yeah, I look, I'm not gonna be one to hamper a guy's growth. If he's ready for it, that's fine. We've seen guys come up and have success at a young age, but it's very, very difficult for that. He literally turned 20 years old yesterday. And so if I would have more time in AAA, but if you believe in him, go ahead. But there can be a risk. We were just talking about Jared Kelenic about 20 minutes ago. Some guys can get screwed up by being brought up that early. It's a point that's not brought up too often because everybody wants to see the young star and everybody wants to see how they do, but it can happen. And so I don't know. I would I be for it as an Orioles fan? Probably, because I want to see a guy, your future talent come up and play well. But you also got to take that risk into account. He's 20 years old. He hasn't been in the minor leagues all that long. I'd want to see at least the full half season in AAA, see where he's at. If he's raking, hitting 400, 350 or something like that, okay. But I want to let him hit a rut and see how he deals with it. I think that's the best thing that could happen to him, is him go over for a few weeks, see how he bounces back in AAA, which is a high level of talent for 20 years old. So that's the way I'd go about it.
I have to agree. Like For the some teams that we've seen this happen to some teams that they bring up their star prospects. I mean, we saw Anthony Volpe this year was the big one that got brought up for the Yankees for opening day. But no offense to the Yankees, but if you're looking at their team, there are a lot of weak spots, especially in that infield, and you want to bring in a glove that's as good as Anthony Volpe. And that's exactly what they did. And he wins a gold glove. I mean, deservingly so. But when you look at the Orioles, I mean, you have Adley Rutschman behind the plate. You have Cedric Mullins in the outfield. I'm missing so many people right now. I'm blanking out on Orioles players right now.
Anthony Santander.
Bingo, Santander. Like, you have all these big names, and they've been succeeding immensely. There's no reason to really worry about, you know, oh, we need Jackson Holiday right now, because you really don't. In all fair, Gunnar Henderson, bingo, the rookie of the year this year. You had the rookie of the year last year. There's no reason to rush a rookie up right now to and potentially stunt his growth in the majors. So, I mean, we just talked about it with Jared Kelenic. Like, he just got brought up too early. He's 24. He's played a little over 3 seasons now. And just, you got to imagine that there's some point where he just got brought up too early. You do see stars that get brought up when they're 20. I mean, Bryce Harper got brought up when he was 20 or 19. And same with Mike Trout. And I mean, we both know how big of stars they are, but that's not for everyone. It's not for everyone whatsoever. So I would hope that if he's ready, bring him up opening day. If he's ready, bring him up opening day. But if he's even the slight bit not ready, don't bring him up. Just, as Anthony said, let him get through a cold streak. Let him work things out, because, you know, baseball is a sport of failure. You are going to fail 7 out of 10 times. You got to keep going. You got to get up and keep moving. So yeah, that's what I would.
I think this is one of the situations where they really benefit from not being in a major city that's constantly on everything. Because if you look at I'm gonna name a couple names like Adam Frazier, Ramon Urias. Not saying those guys are bad players; they're average players. But you know, that's what they are, average, and they're veterans, and they are what they are. And I think that if one or both of those guys starts off the season hitting 220, you're gonna, let's say this is the Mets or the Yankees, Phillies, whatever, you're gonna have a billion fans sitting there saying, why is Holiday sitting there? He's hitting 350 in AAA. I want to see him up. And then sometimes the teams cave to the pressure, as the Mets did with Francisco Alvarez back in 2022, and then it doesn't go well. And so I think this is a situation where you really benefit from Baltimore being, not that the fans aren't passionate, but it's a more relaxed environment. The fans aren't going to be killing the team for every decision they make. They're not going to be on every single player if they're in a rut. But yeah, I think but even without that, you still do have that pressure. If he's killing it in AAA, and your infield is, besides Gunnar Henderson, is struggling, you're still going to feel that pressure. You don't want to waste the guy's time the same way you don't want to stunt their growth. So it's a two-sided coin. I'm more of the side of let the guy grow in AAA and let him hit his ruts. But we've also seen a lot of these young kids getting called up very quickly. So it's really the flip of a coin. There's no way to know right now. But it'll be interesting to see. I think obviously he's the son of Matt Holliday, who is a very good player in his own right, and he only retired a couple of years ago. So to see his son already knocking on the door of the big leagues is really cool, and he'll be joining the team that's on the rise. That's for sure. Beat a lot of people's expectations this past season. So he's on a moving train, and he can only make that train faster.
Yeah, that's what I would hope. I can understand a lot of my friends, Yankees fans, because we live on the Northeast. A lot of my friends, Mets fans, because we live in the Northeast. But I love the Orioles. I love their organization. I don't like their general manager. I mean, he made that weird comment earlier this season about raising prices for the young core, which you hate to hear. But as we come to the end of our show, I would hope that Orioles fans are excited for this move. And I would hope that, baseball as a whole, if you are a baseball fan, you are excited for this move, because the Orioles are an exciting team. And honestly, first of all, GM did not need to come out and say that whatsoever, especially all that happened with the announcer business. But it's part of the game that you're going to need to trade some of your young core, because when you have guys that look like they can be, B+ and higher stars, you can't have. Baseball is not a sport where you can have 9 stars out in the field at a time. Sometimes you have 2 developing, 2 role players, and 5 all-stars if you're lucky. And I think if they do trade some of them away right now, if you're looking at Baltimore, I'm excited for them because they'll be fine. They'll be totally fine. But as we come to the end of our show, any final thoughts from you guys?
I can't wait for the stove to actually be getting hot. I'll say that. I think things are gonna start coming to a head over this next week. I think you're gonna see Yamamoto in the next week, maybe week and a half. I think you're gonna see Ohtani. I think these guys want to go places. I don't think they want to be out there in the open market forever. And I think you're gonna really see some exciting stuff going on, and baseball should hopefully be back in the headlines. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, all the sweepstakes are just talking about Ohtani and Yamamoto. And again, I agree with you. Now that the winter meetings are going on, I think that more of those conversations are going to come about. More teams are getting interested. You see a lot of reports coming out with Ohtani and Yamamoto, and it's only a matter of time until that breaking news announcement comes when they decide on where they're going. And it may still take a little bit of time because there's still a whole offseason to go. But us fans are hopeful that we're getting down to the wire in those conversations, and a decision will be coming in soon, hopefully.
Yeah. And, for the walk-off, thank you for joining us once again. I would hope that the stove gets a little hot. Right now, it looks like the kitchen is closed. But we will see what happens in the next week. And we will see you again on Monday, I believe.